The Carters on death, grief, dementia, and the state of Christianity. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. As you can see, I'm not in my usual spot where I record, but we'll try to make do. We've had a snowstorm and have a bunch of unexpected house guests, but that's okay. Also getting over a little bit of cold, so if my voice sounds a little bit hard to understand, I apologize for that. So I was scrying in the crystal ball in my meditation spot, and I was shown an image of the Carters, and they were sitting in chairs, kind of like the thumbnail picture for this video, holding hands. Although, uh, when you see spirits, they don't always appear as human. They kind of appear as like light. They kind of fade in and out to give you an idea of who they are in human form. Um, and so the first image that I was shown was an image of a person in what appeared to be like a hospital bed or a hospice bed, surrounded by a bunch of very close friends. That's the way it appeared. And it's very obvious that the person in the bed was dying. Um, and then, like very quickly, the person in the bed disappears, and the people around the bed like hug, share condolences, and are grieving and are mourning. And I don't think that's necessarily too enlightening. I think that's kind of what we expect. But the second image was slightly different. The second image, the people around the bed disappeared, and the person in the bed was clearly dead, but was mourning. And then I just heard the phrase in my ear, the mourning for the person dying starts way before death, and they have a lot more people to mourn for. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, and then on the topic of grief, President Carter just kept walking around and pointing to his hip. And it took me a while to kind of get what was going on there. And then I thought maybe it had a hip replacement, but it turns out he did have hip surgery. I don't think it was a hip replacement. Um, and then he kept, jostling between sitting in a chair, laying down, running, and these three different states. And the gist of what I got from the imagery, along with a little bit of clairaudient sounds, was that, grief is kind of like recovering from a surgery. You can't just lay around and expect to heal. Uh, but you also can't run a marathon and expect to heal either. So uh, I think for grief, the message is it's individualized and you have to find the correct pace for yourself. So we'll pull some cards here in just a second to clarify some of these things. Um, then uh, uh, Rosalind appeared by herself, and um, I asked about what was it like to have dementia? That was the question I posed. And I was shown an image of her standing on a corner of a very busy street in a city. And I could make out some of the license plates on the car, and they weren't American license plates. So I assumed it was like a foreign city. And, um, you know, just wandering around kind of confused and talking to people, but not understanding what they were saying or what was going on. And so I think the message that she was trying to relay is that, the person that develops dementia, it's like every day, maybe every hour, every 5 minutes. It's like almost waking up in a different country with people you don't know who don't necessarily speak the same language. And it's like you're trying to find your way back to the people that you do know or the tour bus that you were on, or it's like you're trying to find something that uh, isn't there. And then I was shown some just real quick images of some Alfred Hitchcock films. And so I think, her message that she was trying to get across is that it's just unbelievably scary when you're in that state. So that was very enlightening. And that kind of goes along with some of the teroscopes that I was doing um, for 2025 of, if you're working with somebody that has dementia and they don't always show gratitude, it might be because they can't, um, because they're, just unbelievably scared. So, yeah, I'm kind of getting confirmation that that's what she meant there. Okay, um, the state of Christianity. This one was really interesting, I thought. So it's started out with, Jimmy and Rosalind kind of bantering back and forth. I couldn't really hear what they were saying, but kind of something along the lines of, real Christianity's at home, kind of. Uh, at least that was the gist of what I got. It. They kept showing me their Bible on their nightstand, um, and then it flipped, and I was showed an image of Betty Ford, and she was speaking to a group of people who I'm assuming it was like an AA meeting, and and then like in really bright letters, the word faith came into the ball. And then it went back to the AA meeting, and almost everybody was still there. And then right after that, I was shown uh, like a Sunday congregation at a church, and the pastor or the reverend or was leading the service, and then again, bright big letters, the word faith popped up, and then it went back to the congregation, and less than half of the people were still there. And then I heard the phrase from Rosalind, there's more faith in an AA meeting than there is in the church today. So uh, those were the interesting images I got. Let's just pull a few oracle cards just to kind of close out this. I'm going to keep it pretty short. Um, but what messages do we need to know about death, grief, and let's just start with death and grief. What messages do we need to know about death and grief? Maybe three cards. Messages do we need to know about death and grief? Okay. So yeah, we get bat spirit. This makes perfect sense. A rebirth is assured. Death is just a transformation. That's all it is, and that's the way it should be looked at. And that does not mean that we do not grieve. That does not mean the people that are dying do not grieve as well. It just means that a rebirth is guaranteed for us all. And then we get the moth spirit, which makes perfect sense. It says surrender now. We have to surrender, right? Everyone's going to have that day when death comes knocking. So there's no sense in fighting it. And then I think this is an important message too. The ant spirit, it's time to collaborate. There are people that can help with grieving processes, right? There are people that can help those that are dying have a more comfortable death. I think that's the messages that Uh, I'm getting there. Okay, let's maybe pull some tarot. I don't think I'll pull any cards on dementia. I think that pretty much sums it up, but let's just pull some cards on the state of Christianity. You- So, I think this last election cycle all kind of showed us that it seems like a lot of leaders in the Christian faith, anyhow, are very superficial in how they act and what they say, right? So, what messages do you have for us on the state of Christianity? So, I'm getting a picture of a very empty church. I think Christianity is going to have to evolve if it's going to stay relevant in the next 100 years. I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow, but let's see what the cards say. Yeah, they have big burdens ahead of them. The Ten of Wands. It's like it's an end of a cycle. It's like the cycle of people believing the people of faith is over. I don't think people look at the mega church leaders anymore and think, yeah, they're telling me the truth because they're acting one way and saying something different. There's all this money, private jets, and it just doesn't really add up. Now, that's not the small town churches. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the kind of bigger picture. Christianity's in a position where it needs to defend itself as an institution, not as a faith system. Don't mix the two up. But as an institution, uh, the church is really in a very defensive posture. And I mean, this kind of sums it up perfectly. I mean, the I use this card for mis and disinformation, but I think in this case, it's just a matter of like being two-faced, acting one way and saying another, expecting the congregation to not go out drinking on Saturday nights, yet the people running the church are sleeping with prostitutes, right? We hear these stories all the time. So I think the big picture here is that it's an end of a cycle if the church is going to be able to defend itself. They're going to have to stop that cycle. And the cycle they're going to have to stop is being two-faced or this devil energy, this addiction to power and money and various other things. Let's see if there's a shadow card that, yeah, exactly. There's a lot of fighting going on with how to handle this situation. And it's no longer about families and bringing people together. It's now more about dividing people. And while within each individual unit of a church, it might be about bringing people together as an overall arching theme, Christianity, particularly in the United States, I think is more about um, dividing themselves from the rest. And yeah, I hope you found that interesting. I certainly did. Please like, share, subscribe. I'll be back with a longer video on something else in the near future. Thanks, everyone.